Located on the northeast corner of Africa, Egypt is home to one of the world's earliest and greatest civilizations, with the unified kingdom first surfacing around 3200 BC. There's something about the mystery of it all that lures us back to ancient Egypt again and again. In this video, we welcome you to Egypt, the most fascinating place on earth. The land of the pharaohs. A land of legend and history. A land with a story to tell and a world to live. Like most trips to Egypt, our trip also starts in Cairo. Cairo, the city of 1,000 minarets, is the capital of Egypt. With a total population in excess of 16 million people, is one of the largest cities in both Africa and the Middle East. It is also the 19th largest city in the world, and among the world's most densely populated cities. On the Nile River, Cairo is famous for its own history, preserved in the fabulous medieval Islamic city and Coptic sites in Old Cairo. The Egyptian Museum in the center of town is a must-see, with its countless ancient Egyptian artifacts, as is shopping at the el-Khalili Bazaar. No trip to Cairo would be complete, for example, without a visit to the Giza pyramids. We stayed for 3 nights but still came back at the end of the trip to enjoy the unique fusion of different cultures in Cairo, to get lost in the souks and markets, and to take the flavor of Egyptian life. It would be very nice if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, to see more videos about wonderful destinations like this one. After this brief stay in Cairo, let's say goodbye to the city, or even better, see you soon. In less than 2 hours, the Air Arabia plane took us to the next destination, Luxor. Known as the world's greatest open-air museum, Luxor is home to an incomparable number of ancient Egyptian monuments, and one of the most beautiful cities to visit in Egypt. The entire city is an open-air museum full of stunning Egyptian palaces and ruins, so much so that people dubbed it the City of Palaces. The city is split into 2 sections, the West and the East Bank. See on the map the number of places not to be missed in Luxor and its surroundings. It's amazing. Amongst its highlights are the 3,400-year-old Luxor Temple and the Karnak Temple complex, the necropolises of the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, and the massive stone statues known as the Colossi of Memnon. Also, let's not forget the Temple of Hatshepsut, considered to be a masterpiece of ancient architecture, and the Medinet Habu Temple, a less visited temple, but one that we simply adore. As a small city, visitors can get around Luxor as easily by taxi as by horse-drawn carriage. So let's briefly see the highlights of the places we just mentioned. Luxor Temple is one of the first temples you will see when you arrive in Luxor. This ancient Egyptian temple complex is located right in the middle of Luxor city, and you can easily pay a visit on foot. Luxor Temple is an ancient Egyptian ruin constructed way back in 1400 BC, when the area is still referred to as Thebes, and it was built as a place where the ancient Egyptian people crowned their kings. Karnak Temple is another must-visit large temple complex that is not too far from Luxor city. Right at the entrance of Karnak Temple, you will be greeted with lines of ram-headed sphinx statues on both sides, and within the temple, you will find the Great Hypostyle Hall, a large hallway with more than 130 massive columns arranged in 16 rows that will take your breath away. Located just north of the city center, Karnak Temple is a great place to visit, especially if you plan to do Luxor independently and cheaply, as you can easily reach Karnak Temple by minibus for around 2 Egyptian pounds. Now that we are done with the East Bank, it is time to explore the West Bank of Luxor, and one of the first places you have to visit is the Valley of the Kings. The Valley of Kings is where the ancient Egyptians buried their beloved kings in rock-cut royal tombs to commemorate their accomplishments in life. There have found over 60 tombs and chambers in this valley, many of which were decorated with carvings and murals of Egyptian mythology scenes, which allows us to learn a bit more about the belief system of ancient Egyptians. Some of the most impressive royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings are the tomb of Tutankhamun, the tomb of Ramses V and VI, and the tomb of Seti I, all of which require an extra ticket to get into. Temple of Hatshepsut is an ancient Egyptian temple constructed by Queen Hatshepsut in the 15th century BC, and it is considered to be a masterpiece of ancient architecture. The temple consists of 3 massive terraces that rise above the desert that take you to a number of shrines inside the cliff behind it. There are some really impressive columns and carvings to see once you are inside. The place is pretty big and it can take you an hour to see all it has to offer. Colossi of Memnon are 2 massive stone statues of pharaohs measuring around 18 meters high, and it is said that these statues had been standing at this exact location since 1350 BC when it was constructed, which is pretty mind-blowing. Not too far from the Colossi of Memnon, there is also another impressive temple to visit. The Medinet Habu Temple is an ancient temple dedicated to Amun, and it is famous for its well-preserved inscriptions depicting the defeat of the Sea people during the rule of Ramses III on the walls of the temple. The next day we went to visit 2 more temples complex relatively close to Luxor. The Temple of Hathor at Dendera and the Temple of Seti I at Abydos. The Temple of Dendera is one of the best preserved temples in Egypt. It was known as the Castle of the Sistrum or Pr Hathor, House of Hathor. The Dendera Temple of Hathor is the largest and most impressive of the buildings in this religious complex. It is visually stunning with a grand entrance. The detailed carvings and hieroglyphs will catch your eye. Additionally, the absolutely stunning decorated ceilings are magnificent. Look upwards when you explore the Temple of Hathor. Today, Abydos is notable for the memorial temple of Seti I, which contains an inscription from the 19th dynasty known to the modern world as the Abydos King List. It is a chronological list showing cartouches of most dynastic pharaohs of Egypt from Menes until Seti I's father, Ramses I. It is also notable for the Abydos graffiti, ancient Phoenician and Aramaic graffiti found on the walls of the temple of Seti I. After the 3 days we spent in Luxor, we went by van to Aswan. On the way, we visit the temples of Edfu and Kom Ombo. The Temple of Horus at Edfu was built during the Ptolemaic Kingdom between 237 BC and 57 BC and is possibly the best preserved of the ancient Egyptian structures. This is due to the fact that it was buried under almost 12 meters of desert sand for almost 200 years. The silt from the Nile probably helped to conserve its near-perfect form. The Temple of Horus was dedicated to Horus, the falcon-headed sky god. Horus was considered the protector of the pharaohs. The Temple of Kom Ombo stands right on the river bank between Edfu and Aswan, which makes it a wonderful stop station for Nile cruises and the main highlight of Aswan attractions. The temple is dedicated to 2 gods, Sobek the crocodile god, and Horus, the falcon god Horus. It is weird for any Egyptian temple to be set up for 2 gods, it's just unusual to have double dedication. After visiting these 2 temples, we arrived in Aswan. On the way, we had the opportunity to enjoy the views of the Nile, that tireless snake that accompanied us throughout the trip. On our 4-day stay in Aswan, we stayed on Elephantine Island. The island is located on the western side of the Nile River in Aswan and was considered one of the greatest islands in the Nile River. Today, you can reach the great island of Elephantine by small boats taken from the eastern side of the Nile. It took you about 5 minutes to reach the island and cost 5 Egyptian pounds. The boat has 2 spaces, one for men and one for women. Aswan is a small quiet town with a slew of amazing things you can do. Due to its proximity to 2 of the greatest temples in Egypt, Philae and Abu Simbel, Aswan offers a great base for you to explore Nubian ruins and learn more about the Nubian people of southern Egypt. In this context, during the days we spent in Aswan, in addition to visiting the Philae and Abu Simbel temples, we took the opportunity to take a walk and get to know Elephantine Island better by visiting the temple and the Nilometer and taking a boat trip along the Nile visiting the Nubian village. As it could not be otherwise, we took a tour of the city of Aswan that honestly did not enchant us. Despite having a seafront with a fantastic view over the Nile, Elephantine Island and the desert, and an interesting market, the rest of the city did not arouse much interest. Also noteworthy is the superb Sofitel legend Old Cataract, although hotels are not what interests us most in travel. We like to live the culture and the people. We will then show a brief summary of the places we visited and where we toured during our stay in Aswan. In the coming weeks, we will be sharing more detailed videos about the history of each of these places. So it would be great if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. Starting with the temples, and the closest one, we went to see the Philae Temple. Interestingly, UNESCO in 1968 assisted with relocating the Philae and Abu Simbel temples, as the original site would be flooded with the works of the Aswan Dam. Easily accessible by taxi, the Philae Temple and its surroundings make a perfect composition. One of the most well-preserved temples of the Ptolemaic period in Aswan, Philae Temple will offer you a glance at how impressive the temples were when it was constructed more than 2,000 years ago. The temple is a masterpiece dedicated to Isis, Osiris, and Horus. The temple consists of various pylons, shrines, and monuments, and was the last to be built in the classical Egyptian style. The second temple we visited during our stay in Aswan was Abu Simbel. Abu Simbel consists of two massive rock-cut temples located 230 kilometers away from Aswan, right at the border between Egypt and Sudan. Getting there takes up to 3 hours one way with a bus, which seems awfully long, but trust me, it will all be worthwhile the moment you lay your eyes upon the massive seated pharaoh sculptures in front of the Great Temple of Ramses II. The facade of the Great Temple of Ramses II is adorned with 4 massive seated pharaoh sculptures, and several more standing sculptures will greet you the moment you walk inside the temple. To relax from the journey to the Abu Simbel Temple, there's nothing like relaxing and enjoying a journey on an Egyptian felucca in Aswan. Glide on the river around Elephantine Island, then takes a visit to the Nubian village. Nubian village is a small colorful village built for tourists with the purpose of preserving the Nubian ways of life. The street is full of shops and places to drink tea and wind down a little. Most souvenirs here are expensive though, but still, a fun place to visit in Aswan. I highly recommend you go at sunset. The Nile is exceptionally beautiful during the golden hour, and it is one of the most peaceful experiences you can get away from the city of Aswan. Elephantine Island is a great spot to experience traditional Nubian village life. The island's 2 neighboring villages of Siu and Koti are a maze of wriggling lanes lined with squat mud brick houses. The Nubians traditionally live in houses painted in bright vivid colors, which are an interesting sight. 2 Nilometers are located on the Elephantine Island. The most popular one is a corridor Nilometer, which is associated with the Temple of Seti being one of the oldest Nilometers in Egypt. The first temple built on the island was the Temple of Seti around 3000 BC. The temple went under renovations and modifications over the next 3,000 years. Records show the existence of an Egyptian temple of Khnum in the 3rd dynasty. To end this chapter of the trip dedicated to Aswan, we just wanted to share the fact and curiosity that the biggest storm recorded in the region in the last 60 years happened during our stay. In fact, what looked like friendly thunder quickly turned into a storm where the rain and wind were quite violent. As a result of the storm, the city was without electricity for 2 days, and scorpions escaped from their shelters, causing hundreds of injuries, some in serious condition. Despite our fears of continuing the journey as planned to Marsa Alam on the Red Sea, as the roads were cut and flooded, in the end, we managed to make the journey by a car that couldn't have gone better. Marsa Alam is a small town on the Red Sea. In fact, we didn't even visit the city, as the aim was to take advantage of the 2 to 3 days we had planned to spend here, to enjoy the sun, the water, and do some snorkeling. Let's go by steps. The weather. It was the 17th of November and the weather was just amazing. An ideal temperature for bathing in the sea, without wind and water of around 23 degrees Celsius, ideal for cooling off. The water is super clean, even crystal clear. The beaches. Well, let's just talk about the beaches we went to, which were situated within a 5 kilometers radius of Marsa Alam. And even though the weather and water were perfect, the beaches, being very rocky, did not make our delights. We love beaches with white sand, and we don't find them here. Anyway, spending 2 days resting and taking a nice bath and getting a tan was very good. As for snorkeling, we saw some fish. Period. We believe that we were not in the right place. Then we return to Cairo by plane, as Marsa Alam has an airport for domestic and international flights. On the way back to Cairo by plane, we can see that to the north, there are several islands with coral reefs and deep blue waters, which remind us of the Maldives. Again in Cairo, it was time to go back to the markets, see the Coptic quarter, and enjoy the last night of this trip to Egypt. By the way, it's curious to see so many street photographers photographing young people, in the most diverse compositions. Here they take social media seriously. I would also like to refer a restaurant that has become our canteen in Cairo, the Oldish. With a varied vegan and non-vegan menu, balanced and well prepared, but it was the service that captivated us the most. It's close to Tahrir Square. The square was guarded by a battalion of agents who wouldn't let us film by any means. By the way, the use of cameras in this country is not well tolerated, and my friends, if you want to bring drones, forget it, or else they will be permanently embalmed at the border. Going to Cairo allows tourists to visit the Pyramids of Giza, see one of the most fantastic museums, if not the most fantastic I've ever visited, enjoy the incredible views over the city and the citadel, enjoy the River Nile, but what we liked most about the city was from the turmoil and movements that are experienced in the city's markets, with the main reference to Khan el-Khalili. Located in the heart of Islamic Cairo, this busy and colorful open-air bazaar is filled with unique and exotic items from spices and perfumes to jewelry and souvenirs. It's really the local culture and people that move us on our travels. And we've come to the end of another trip. Thank you for watching the video, and we hope you enjoyed it and liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you soon and stay healthy.